Welcome to the session. So my name is Jyoti Mahapatra. I'm the big data architect at Altria. I manage the whole data lake and Databricks infrastructure in Altria. So what you guys have got me, both of us, for next 40 minutes. So I'm going to take you through our journey to how we understand our 360 view of the consumer journey, where we can understand our consumer activities, their interaction with our different various digital channels, and build a personalization model scoring value so that we can drive our consumer to our website and register themselves. So about Altria, Altria is a tobacco manufacturing company. It's in around for a very long time. So if you look at our mission is own and develop financially disciplined business that leaders responsibly providing adult tobacco and wine and consumer with superior branded products. So what this mean, as a mission goes, we want to provide for the adult consumers their choice of product as a financially responsible way. So what that means, as the tobacco industry from a market share point of view is changing from shrinking day by day, so this personalization service for the consumers is help us to do the right product to the right consumer through the right channel. That's where we don't want to oversell or overmarket and overspend our money on the consumers who are not rightly fit into our products. So going there, our context is if you think about data, it's nothing new. It's not it's everything. If you look at in today's industry, data has a competitive advantage. So last 1.5 days, we are all talking about how we are democratizing the data to coming up with the different type of machine learning and AI solutions to understand the consumer better and do a personalization service to the consumer, not doing a wide scale or geographical or market-driven services from a product marketing point of view. So and very competitive, and a tobacco industry is a very competitive and regulated market. So we only market to the consumers who are opted in to our products. So we cannot just go ahead and market in the publicly. So that's why our goal is to drive the consumers so that they can opt in to our products so that we can market them better. So I think our mission when we start this journey, so how can we connect, you guys have seen this slide many times through that last 1.5 day, how we can take the data and operationalize it and execute, and based on the data points we're getting back from them, build our model, refine our model, and better understand our consumers. So the couple of points I want to mention here, if I think about not the data by itself, just building a data warehouse or data lake is not going to solve the problem. So how can we take the data and get value out of it by running some machine learning models? And it doesn't stop there. Once we execute those models, how can we learn from that data, collect additional data points, and refine our models and go in that circular loop? So some of the business initiatives which tied up with our mission is digital transformation. So as I was starting of the slide, it said we are talking about more 360 view of the consumer journey, how all the interaction with the consumer does through all the various channels, like web channel, SMS, all the channels, how we can integrate them together and not only understand the channel experience, but also there's a big part of our product marketing is through the retailers. We have the data from all the way from the manufacturer to the wholesaler, from the wholesaler to the retailer, and from the retailer to the consumer. So how can we take that retailer view of the product or retailer view of the consumer and take the digital view of the consumer and their choice, and how we can merge them together and understand a holistic view of the consumer? So that's the digital transformation we're talking about. And the data volume, if you think about the retailer to the consumer, that's what we call it point of sales data. So we are into that journey for last more than 1.5 to 2 years. So we are still growing in that field. we started collecting some of we don't have the whole market basket. We started collecting our tobacco-related product. Now we are going to go collect more information and understand more the consumer behavior patterns. So what I'm trying to say is our data volume is growing exponentially from the point of sales data. Similarly, if you think about web click data, as I say, that data is also growing very exponentially because all the interaction, all the activities being done on the website by the consumer, that data we are collecting so that we can build that picture. So and we have all the trade programs where we have the information where we are sending the data from our wholesaler to the retailer to the distributor. That data we are trying to bring in. So the point is saying when you talk about big data problem, there are a lot of different data sets. So how can we bring them together and create an integrated view of the data so that we can understand our various data points and build our advanced analytics models. And on top of that, if you think about data governance, that's a big there. I think the things which we are talking about, I just want to preface one thing, we are not 100% perfectly implemented everything yet. I'll say we are there 70, 80, 90% there. So this is data governance and data cataloging. That we still need to be mature in our environment. So before we started this journey, what are our challenges? So as I say, I give you multiple data sets. We're talking about point of sales data, our wholesaler to retailer data, and our web data, digital consumer data. So all the data contents stored in a disparate sources. And there's no integrated view of the data because they are in the different systems. So I think there are certain sessions yesterday people talk about how people used to do the integrated view of the data. In our world also still the same. People used to download the data to their laptop and try to integrate within Excel or SAS, those type of things, and try to build a model, which was taking a longer time to do any type of work. First thing, getting all the data, transform them, and doing on the laptop. It was not able to scalable because of the limited power of the laptop or individual systems. So, and I think every time when there is a new data source we wanted to bring it, then it takes a long time to go through the ETL process to getting into the loading into our existing data warehouse and get a value out of it. So I think pretty much a lot of people have mentioned in different sessions. The goal is how can you do your modeling or do your analysis and fail fast, not spending most of your time to collect the data. So that will take us to the next slide. This is the data landscape, what I mentioned before. We have how can we bring our operation data, execution data, as well as our advanced analytics or a lot of ad hoc or discovery type of work, how we can put them together and work them in sync with different applications and systems. So that's where our journey started. This is a very high-level view of how we are getting all our data through our ingress process and then doing using a lot of different cluster technology to process the data. And then at the end, we have different persona, what we are targeting from a user access point of view. We are targeting data science persona, data engineering persona, as well as data analyst persona. Those are from a user point of view. But at the same time, all the other downstream applications, how the model or the scoring, what we build on our interactive in our cluster, how that can be consumed by different applications without redoing the lot of the work. So I'll have Ramesh take over from here, talk about a little bit of each of the components and how we implemented and what are the challenges we faced and how we overcome.
All right, thank you, Jyoti. So there are some seats available in the front if you want to take a seat. Yeah, whatever the Jyoti talked about, the business problem that we're trying to solve, especially at the enterprise level, so we need a journey. The journey that we're talking about has to have some start. The start, we essentially picked up the fundamentally fail fast. The fail fast is going to come up if you are implementing the solution on the cloud. The cloud that we picked up in Azure, by the way, the Azure cloud, that's not my battle. Somebody did it, somebody got it in Azure. If you see that the whole journey of the data lake, we wanted to have 4 buckets of stages. One is an ingress, where the data acquisition can be done, and the data storage, and the data build, and the do analytics. So we got the Azure as a platform to build it. So I was talking to Jyoti, let's go ahead and build it. It's a click of button, spin off a whole bunch of clusters, and put the data, do it. That's what the Microsoft says, right? And I was a little excited. And Jyoti said, hold on, buddy. It's not too fast. Fast fail doesn't mean that you just, the 90% of the big data solutions are already failing. Don't make it 91% by tomorrow itself. So we need to put some ground rules. It's in line with the organizations. That takes us, my next slide, talks about what is my ground rules to set up to step from data acquisition to the data value. So I don't want to go through each line of items, but I want to focus on the 3 other major points that we considered as guidelines and then pick up the right tools. So as an organization that we picked up as a PaaS first, meaning any product that we want to pick up, including Databricks, data lakes, or any other products heavily used in the market. So it has to be PaaS. And it's in line with our security folks in our organization has very, very strict on what the guidelines talks about as a product. And look at the third point, where any product that we want to pick up has to have the identity management, which we call it an Azure Active Directory. And the vulnerability and the audit reports has to have those. And as an organizational guidelines, the data should not leave our subscription. If you pick up any market or any products in this, there might be a chance, or there might be a thing that we need to put the data to their environment to process it. But as an organization goal or guidelines, the data should not leave. So we put up all the ground rules. There are a few other. You can read through it. To make any product choice to happen, that data acquisition or the data storage. So in Azure, there are 2 products available. One is storage and the Azure Data Lakes. Storage is, if you think about it, it's a public storage. It can access through just give an access and give an access key, you get there. But if I take you to our IT security, yes, it's a PaaS offering, which is good. But what about the AAD? Means identity management. Does it have it? No, it's failed. Go back. So again, we picked the product as an Azure Databricks, the Data Lake. That's in GA'd around 2017, around 18. It's GA'd and came with all the enterprise guidelines, which matches your identity management, your PaaS solution. We're good. Let's go and put the data, everything here. We got at least gigabytes of data, terabytes of data on-prem, and there is an external sources sending us a lot of data. How do we do that? How do we put the data into the cloud? Let's use an express route. If you are known about the technical people, they know you have a pipeline from on-prem to cloud, make it an express route. But if you see the next lane of the line, express route, it's not open for public, which means any data that you're sending across from on-prem to cloud, we cannot use express route. Though you have a tunnel where you can push the heavy load of data, but it cannot be used. The reason behind is any express route connected from on-prem to on-cloud, potentially you're exposing your corporate network access to the cloud. So that's one of the guidelines that we cannot be exposed as a public. It has to be private. So to make that, we're actually looking for a product which makes which product we can bring the data from on-prem to on-cloud. There's a Kafka that around the streaming. There's a Flume. There's a lot of products we evaluated, but every product that we evaluated back in 3 years ago, most of them are IaaS kind of solutions. So the first guidelines we picked up out is the PaaS offering. It's not meeting our guidelines. So the only solution that we have to push the data across on-prem to cloud over the wire is if you heard about the security protocols, is in 443, which is an HTTPS. So the Azure PowerShell, which can do the job for you, but it's terabytes of data, gigabytes of data. We cannot open the data in that HTTPS. So there are things that we need to compress it, push it to the cloud, uncompress it. That's how we did ingression, data acquisition to the cloud in Azure Data Lakes. But who can maintain which product can maintain the jobs? So, okay, morning or the evening, there's lots of jobs coming in. How to manage it? So the product that we picked up is Data Factory. Data Factory has a lot of pipelines that can connect to the on-prem, to the on-cloud, and push it in. But I was talking about back in 3 years ago, there's not much of orchestration is available. So we started off with the SSIS and orchestration. And then the transition over the time, the Data Factory picked up. And now the Data Factory has a workflow, an orchestration engine, and we can do the pipelining. That's good. We got it. Who is the engine? That's where, give me 1 minute, I'm going to pick up that. The engine because it's Data Lakes has the storage and engine. It's called ADLA. And remember, the solution that we talked about is a PaaS as an offering. And Databricks or Cloudera, Hortonworks, any product we picked up, most of the products come close to the PaaS offering, but there are certain principles we are not meeting except the Databricks. That's the whole reason that we picked up the Databricks is the first and enterprise solution that is gave up is the PaaS as an offering. It's a managed services where it can be managed by the Databricks, but the data stays in our premise. It's a lot of architecture and a lot of technical. I just want to take a little bit of time here and explain how the reference architecture we built across. Of course, it takes time. It took time to understand how each component fits in which bucket. If you see there are 3 identities or the entities here. One on your right is the Altria as a corporate network, and on your left is the service providers like Microsoft and Databricks. If you see the cloud of Altria, we subdivided into 2 pieces. One is a private cloud of Altria, where the network, which is access points from the corporate, is connected through express route. It's very secure to be connected, and there are services in the cloud. Above, services can stay on the public, but it connect to and talk to all your cloud networking. Most of the challenges we faced is which product fits where. Let's say take an example of the Databricks and Data Lakes. The Data Lake, as I said, it's a public available, and though it is integrated with Active Directory, but I cannot really connect to my corporate network to push the data, a whole lot of data. It's terabytes of data that we were trying to pull. But it's eventually evolved, and there's a concept called service endpoints. If you see it in the middle of it, that's a service endpoints is to directly connect the data lake and gives you a express route connections, and the data can be talked to your on-prem versus the data lake. And the left on the Microsoft, that most of the times we encountered since it's a managed services, and they're trying to manage the services in our Altria account. Okay, it's any network that is extended from corporate network to our network, it's okay to talk each other. But as a providers that coming and talking from external to the Altria, you got to be very, very cognizant of understanding how they're coming to our network and what kind of protocols they're taking it, what's inbound and outbound. That's the whole logistics that we need to take care of any product is onboarding.
So one of the challenges, as Ramesh mentioned, like we are having multi-cloud implementation, not multi-cloud provider, more of a multi-cloud. One is like your private cloud, more of a IaaS implementation, or public cloud is PaaS implementation. The more, lot of time we spend with our networking team to figure out how we want to integrate all these access points together, so like service endpoint or like firewall rules, all those things. There's a lot of back and forth and spend time with the security folks to understand what we can do, what we cannot. Not only that, also with the vendor provider to mature their product, because like one of the is a SQL, managed SQL instance, which is like when we started looking at that, we had to end up opening like almost like 4,000 to 5,000 IPs, so which is not acceptable by any company, any enterprise security team. So we work with them to mature their product. It's just help us help you type of working with a vendor and maturing their product also.
The other thing that we want to talk about is the data lakes, how the data is being zoned so that it will be going to the certain pipelines and certain stages to get your data business ready. It's pretty much similar. Most of the slides that you see is there will be a staging where the data can be hosted from the internal or external, and we'll put it as a raw. Raw is meaning is it's the version of the files, the data that is coming from the external. We are not changing anything except that certain level of validation that we going to do it, like how many files has been received, what kinds of content, how much size of the file, that is our basic things. But as we move on, there's a zone called refine. That's where your actual business process has been applied, and it will be a business-ready data. It's available in a refined zone. That essentially it's an access to the business, either it can be available for discovery and it is available for reporting. So it is essentially solving the problem for engineering, the data science, the analyst personas. Why Databricks? As I mentioned, it's after evaluating the Cloudera, the Hortonworks, the first product in Azure, which come with all these services as the identity management, which is very, very helpful and friendly, and it directly connects to your Azure Active Directory on Azure. And why the other things, like it's easily integrated with the data lakes, integrated with all our SQL databases and SQL MI. And again, it's a major contribution of this Spark. So these are the major criteria that we picked up in Azure, and it's a central engine for all our data to serve either the discovery or any other personas that we are looking into.
So I think like we touch upon a lot of like implementation challenges, like because of the hybrid nature, like how you want to interact with your private VNet, with the public VNet. I think that's where like we spend a lot of time in our journey, as well as like I think like Ramesh mentioned like different zones. I think that helps us a lot. And one of the big things like going through the whole process for the data engineering folks who are coming from a data warehouse or distributed data system, operation data source, those type of things, define your zone first. I think that's a point I want to drive through, because like we did a little bit of afterthought. So coming into the raw, we figure out the different zoning system. So it took us a little bit time to navigate, reprocess some of the data, and coming up with the right zoning, moving the data in the right zoning areas. So I think like Ramesh touched a lot of things on this, so I don't want to repeat again. I want to go back, talk about more of success measures, after what we have done. And so right now, if you think about like I saw the slide where we talk about disparate data systems, not easy integration. So now we build this data lake store where we have all the data in one place. So then it comes how we want to compute and get that integrated view or get value out of it through different type of modeling technology. So that's where the Databricks definitely like major tool for us within the enterprise to get that, like integrate that view. And we use Databricks as part of your ETL process to move the data from raw to the refined zone and reporting zone. At the same time, that's the Databricks environment is being used for a lot of our machine learning and advanced analytics also. On top of that, like you look at the reporting zone, there we build like as I say, like we have like multiple personas. So when you talk about some of the users who are not that Spark educated enough to write Spark level of code, at the same time, they want a little bit of aggregate level of data. So we build, like if a couple of slides back, like when I was talking about SQL managed instance, that's where our data mart. So we have an environment where we have data lake, advanced computing engine with the Databricks, as well as the data mart, all co-locate and build that ecosystem of the end-to-end enterprise data solution for us. And one of the use case, I think like we have some folks who are much more expert on this side in my audience. So I think that I'll try to talk like one of the use case where like a model score, what we do a like personalized model scoring on an individual consumer basis based on their activity data what we have. So like that is what we run on our Databricks system to build that scoring model on an individual personalized basis, which we provide to our campaign management tools as well as our digital value platform tools. We don't have to change anything, same scoring model, go to multiple applications and do a personalized offering to the consumers. So I think like these are what we're trying to say, like these are the different components within that consumer segment where we want to, we call it fusion, where we take that data and create a denormalized view of all the variables or feature sets which you want to calculate part of the model scoring. And then it goes through and build the model using like R, Spark SQL, and PySpark. And based on like it iterate through all the model, like we go through the iterative circle where we create the model, document it, validate it, and based on the learning from the after the execution, learning from the consumer behavior, we update the model and go through the process again and again. So one of our like success criteria for the model is like we are like in-house model management solution. Like, I think like there are certain a lot of like after this conference we have seen some of the offerings we can take it back and implement it. But now we are like using the DevOps to manage our code, our model deployments. We're working on that, and we can rapidly build and deploy a model. So anytime we want to change a variable and rerun the model, we can do it within a couple of hours, which used to take a long time before. And we want to build a model where flexible, technology agnostic. So that means like any application, downstream application can use that personalized model score value and execute to deliver value to the individual consumers. We have a QC in place, so that means like once we run the model, we take the output of model, we do the validation before we do the publishing also. And as well as I say, like flexibility enough to add any additional features or any additional variable to the model calculation also. So that iterative process. Take the learnings.
Yeah, during this process, there's a main key takeaways that we learn, and there's a lot. Majorly, what we're thinking about is how do we permissions be handled in the data lakes? There is a lot APIs sitting on as you see the files, but underneath there is a lot of APIs. Sometimes you not get access to it. So we'll have to work with the Microsoft because it's a new product and there is a lot of learning that is going through. So that we felt a little more learning that takes a little time to understand because of each service principal that applies on permissions. While you're applying the permissions and then any system's trying to read it, you'll see an access permissions. And a lot of times it's going to happen. And it supports UTF-8 as a compression or the standard, Unicode standard. It started with, we had a lot of problems to understand. And the major.
So I think like one of the things we did also, like part of our data ingress process, because of certain like features was not available within the ADLA and USQL features. So we had to do a lot of custom development of some extraction process, extracting the compressed file to convert it to the UTF file. So those are the learning process we went through to mature our solution and the way we want to implement, where we can maintain and manage for a long term.
It goes on and goes on. There's so many other learnings that we can take it from there. If you see the Databricks, it's come along a long way, and it's been, we learned a lot, and it's perfectly sitting for us. You might end up some issues with handling the drivers when you're writing R programs, when Spark Rs or the legacy R programs, and you're trying to migrate from it. Josh sitting in it, my friend, he's had a lot of problems. The Databricks that we're carrying out, initially it's an AD integrated, but it's still evolving in terms of understanding the Active Directory in terms of the access levels. You know who you are, it understands it, but it's still we are evolving into access levels, RBAC model that we applied into the Databricks. But it's evolving, but we are almost there. Is it even worth mentioning any other points, Jyoti?
Like one more thing we want to add, I would like to add, like some of the streaming dub, we use the Event Grid and Event Hub from the Microsoft Azure implementation. So that's where like you saw like the Avro, because that like writes the Avro, and Databricks can take most out of the Parquet file. So you have to do a lot of conversion from Avro to JSON, JSON to Parquet. So those are the certain things that was a good learning for us to do that type of implementation, so that we can take the compression of the high performance of the Databricks.
The good news is we have the Gen 2 coming in the data lakes. It almost acts like a net storage, and all the files sitting in Gen 2 is a Parquet format, and we're going to sit Databricks Delta is going to sit on it, and hopefully it's all a combination of suits will perfectly suit for our analytical platforms.
So I think like the point I want everyone to drive from here is basically more of a thing, like it's not never it's done. It's always like when you say data lake is a journey, and your advanced analytics is also a journey. So you have to iterate through all the process to make it more mature and to address your business problems. So that's all I think.
With that, we push it to the QA. Have any questions?
So we have like 6 more minutes. Any question?
Yep. Go ahead.
For questions, please, we've got mics on the left and mics here on the right. But before we jump into Q&A, please join me with a round of applause for Ramesh and Jyoti. All right, here's our first question.
Yes, I have one quick question. Like in your architecture, like when you have like a different zones,
Yep.
Basically you're like putting the raw, like basically a landing zone or landing area and the raw data. So the landing is you're putting as is from the whatever the source you are pulling from.
Yeah, I think like so. Let me spend like 1 minute maybe on all the zones. Like when we bring the data on the landing, it's the Azure's rawest format from the source. We do certain validation there, like some checksum checking, as well as the record count and some of the schema validation.
Okay.
Once we validate that, then we'll move it to the raw. Until that landing is just for a couple of days, just to go through the process. We don't store the data in the landing area.
When you said like schema validation, right?
Yep.
How did you do that?
So
Like
what we
basically-
do, I think like if we go back to that process, like there are data enrollment process, we work with any data providers. We have a checklist. We go through that and capture the schema. We create a master schema and store in our one of the SQL database. Every time we get the data, we do that type of validation before we confirm that it's a successful or failure. One thing I would like to add, basically, if the source change the schema, we don't stop the data load into the data lake. We identify that, we hold it in a temporary zone, and work with that external vendor or whoever the provider to update the master schema. Because the thing is, what we want to do, we don't want to stop the data flow into the data lake. Once we have the data, we can come back and fix that data later.
And the good news is that Delta is going to cover your CDC seamlessly. So that's the good news for us.
Oh, yes, that's correct. Like basically, if you have like there might be a use case like basically when we try to get like a lot of data in CSV format, are you able to read it? Like you just convert into different formats before putting into different zones, or like you're?
It's part of the process. We read the CSV file and compare like based on the. So every file provider provide the data file as well as info file. So that info file has the schema definition. So it's not, so the point is we want to have a little bit intelligent. We don't want to go too far to build a ETL process, ETL tool on our own. So we do basic validation in the raw. But when we take it to refine, that time we do additional validation, make sure that all the schema is matching with the previous file. So there are a lot more logic in that. We can take offline and we can talk more information on that.
Okay, one more question. So when you are having like in a format, how you are doing the data cataloging? So when you have in the data
right
lake,
now, Excel. Right now, Excel. we are trying to mature in that area right now. I think like we are looking at a couple of tools to how we can automate, like the way from my experience, you do 40 to 50% in the tool and 60% in the process. So we have not found a right tool yet, so we are still looking at the right tool.
Oh, thanks. Thanks a lot.
Oh, any other questions?
Yeah, I have a quick one. You said that you don't store PII in the data lake. Can you share in which component you do the scrubbing or what tools you use?
So I say right now we are not storing the PII data in our data lake. So if we go back to our scoping data, like all the PII data stays on the on-prem database.
So data sets that include PII are not loaded at all?
At this point, we are not bringing into a data lake. We have a plan. We have to figure out like the data lake come up. Gen 2 comes with their data encryption key and other things. So we are looking at in future.
Hi, can you explain your data flow with Databricks, the SQL Server, Data Lake, and how you're using Event Hub to go back and forth between everything? Because it seems like you're traversing the public and private with their private data over public when you're not supposed to be.
Sorry, can you repeat that question again here?
So throughout all of your diagrams, you have Databricks touching your private SQL Server, which is against the success criteria that you said you follow. And I was trying to figure out how you're interacting Databricks with Data Lake.
He can speak to the detail, but like from a high level, if I say like we are not directly, Databricks is not directly pushing the data to the SQL Server, we put in the ADLS and take the blob storage and load it to the SQL MI. It's a two-step process for us right now.
So you're going SQL Server to Data Factory to Data Lake through Databricks then to that.
That's right. So if you see the Databricks is sitting on the public cloud, and the reason we cannot talk to the private cloud, it has to go through your firewalls, getting through it.
Flip forward, I think, 1 or 2 slides then. You have that hitting SQL Server.
It's not directly going. It's more of through the ADLS it's going.
Okay. Interesting.
All right, right on time.
Thank you.
So if you have any additional questions, please find Ramesh and Jyoti in the back of the room. But again, thank you very much for your presentation today.
Thank you.
Thank you.